We have studied that perfect competition is a market structure where there are large number of sellers who are selling identical products and each seller has no control over the prices it receives. But the focus of this chapter is on the monopoly market structure, which is directly opposite to the perfect competition. Monopoly is defined as a market structure where there is a single seller, that is, no close competitor is available. Monopolist has the power to influence the price it receives for the product, as he is the sole seller of the product in the market. In this chapter, we will examine the implications of monopoly power and how this monopoly power influences the prices it receives for its product from the consumers. Monopoly. Monopoly is a market structure where there is a single seller and large number of buyers. Monopolist being a sole producer of the product, there are no close substitutes available for the product which it produces. Monopolist is a single firm in the industry, thus the firm's output is the entire industry output. And we can also say that there is no difference between firm or industry. The difference between firm and industry thus disappears under monopoly. As a result, the demand curve faced by the monopoly firm is also the market demand curve for that product. The monopolist has full control over the prices as there are no competitors in the market. Unlike perfect competition, he is the price maker and not a price taker. And in order to have a monopoly, there has to be barriers to entry. In other words, monopoly implies complete absence of competition.
Learning outcomes. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the concept of monopoly, understand the concept of monopoly power and its relevance for economy as a whole, know the concept of price discrimination, know how monopolies succeed in charging price higher than the marginal cost. Let us know about the features of monopoly. First, single seller and many buyers. Under monopoly, there is a single seller. He is the sole producer of the commodity. But there exist large number of buyers under this market as well. Second, firm is an industry itself. Under monopoly, there is no difference between a firm and an industry. So, the firm's output is the entire industry's output and demand curve faced by a firm is also the market demand curve for the product. Third, no close substitutes. As monopolist is the sole producer, there are no close substitutes for the product it produces. If close substitutes are available, then firm will not be able to enjoy monopoly. Thus, the cross elasticity of demand for the monopolist product and other producer product is very small. Fourth, full control over prices. Monopolist, being a single producer, has the sole authority to decide the price of the product that it produces. Unlike the perfect competition, monopolist is a price maker and not a price taker. Fifth, barriers to entry. For a monopoly to exist, there has to be barriers to entry. If entry is not restricted, then new firms would attract towards profit. More will be the firms, more will be the competition. But monopoly implies complete absence of competition. Sixth, profit maximization. The sole objective of the monopoly is profit maximization. This is achieved by producing that level of output where additional to revenue is equal to addition to cost. That is, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Seventh, perfect knowledge. The monopolist has full knowledge of the market conditions. Any uncertainty about market conditions are completely ruled out. Eighth, price discrimination. This is the most important feature of monopoly. Under this, a monopolist charges different prices from different customers for the same product. Ninth, no supply curve. Under monopoly, there is no unique supply curve. So, there is no one-to-one relationship between price and quantity supplied. We will now discuss the welfare aspects of monopoly. As we have seen under perfect competition, that perfectly competitive market equilibrium is efficient in resource allocation, and because it maximizes the sum of producer surplus and consumer surplus. But the situation is entirely different under monopoly, which maximizes its profit by producing an output where price is more than marginal cost. This results in higher prices and lower quantities and makes the firm better off and consumer worse off. Monopoly is often criticized because it results in economic inefficiency in resource allocation. Economic efficiency is achieved when resources are allocated among the production of goods such that it maximizes the social welfare. Under monopoly, resources are misallocated and results in the loss of social welfare. When a product is sold under conditions of monopoly, the price that consumers are paying are more than the marginal cost. Due to this higher price, the monopolist gains at the expense of the consumers. In the figure, perfectly competitive equilibrium would occur at point EC where price is equal to marginal cost. The perfectly competitive price is OPC and quantity is OQC. At price OPC, consumer surplus is equals to area 1 plus area 2 plus area 3. Producer surplus is equals to area 4 plus area 5. The monopolist is in equilibrium at point EM, where MR is equal to MC. The monopolist price is OPM and quantity is OQM. Now, because of monopoly, prices rises to OPM and consumer surplus reduces by the area 2 and area 3. Consumers are losing area 3 because output reduced to OQM from OQC. Consumers also lose area 2 because now prices has risen from PC to PM and that area is now transferred to the monopolist. Producer surplus under competitive equilibrium is the sum of the area 4 and area 5. Now, because of monopoly, price has risen to OPM from OPC and producer surplus reduced by area 5 because output now has been reduced from OQC to OQM and Monopolist gains area 2 from the consumers because of the higher prices. The loss to the producer is less than its gain. Thus, the area 3 and area 5 are lost to the society. Deadweight loss from monopoly power. At perfect competitive price OPC, consumer surplus is equals to 1 plus 2 plus 3 and producer surplus is equals to 4 plus 5. At monopoly price OPM, consumer's loss is equals to 2 plus 3 and producer gain is equals to 2 minus 5. Thus, the deadweight loss to the society is equals to minus 5 minus 3 or minus bracket 5 plus 3 bracket close. The deadweight loss from monopoly power is given by the shaded area, that is area 3 and area 5. The deadweight loss resulting from monopoly accounts for its allocative inefficiency. We shall now discuss the price discrimination in monopoly. So far, we have seen that the monopolist charges the same price for the product from all the customers. But in several cases, monopolist sells the same product at different prices to the different customers even though the cost of producing it is same. This practice of charging multi-price is known as price discrimination. There are four types of price discrimination, namely, first, personal price discrimination. Price discrimination is said to be personal when a seller charges different prices from different persons. 2. Local price discrimination. Price discrimination is said to be local when a seller charges different prices from the people of different places. For example, a seller may sell a commodity at one price at home and at different price abroad. 3. Price discrimination according to use. When a seller charges different prices for different uses of product, then it is called price discrimination according to use. Fourth, price discrimination according to time. When seller charges different prices for the same product at different times, then it is called price discrimination according to time. Now, we will discuss the degree of price discrimination. Professor A.C. Pigu has distinguished between the following three types of price discrimination. These are first degree price discrimination, second degree price discrimination, third degree price discrimination. First degree price discrimination. When the monopolist sells its output at different prices which different consumers are willing to pay, then this kind of price discrimination is known as first degree price discrimination. In this type, the monopolist extracts the entire consumer surplus. Second degree price discrimination. When the monopolist divides the entire market or the consumers into different groups, sections, or categories, and then charges different prices from each section, then this type of price discrimination is known as second degree price discrimination. Third degree price discrimination. When a profit maximizing monopoly firm sets different prices in different markets having demand curves with different elasticities, it is using third degree price discrimination. When is price discrimination possible? In order to practice price discrimination, two necessary conditions that need to be fulfilled are: first, the market is to be divided into sub-markets and each sub-market has different price elasticity of demand. And second, he sells in different markets in such a way that goods sold by him in the cheaper market cannot be resold in the dearer market. What is the equilibrium under price discrimination? We are starting with the simple case of a monopolist who sells his commodity in two sub-markets at two different prices. Each of the sub-markets has demand curves with different price elasticity. The price discriminating monopolist has to decide how much total output he must produce and how should the total output be allocated between the sub-markets so as to maximize the total revenue and profits. Suppose initially the seller is selling 100 units in each market. We also assume that with this allocation, marginal revenue in market 1 denoted by MR1 is rupees 10 and the marginal revenue in market 2 denoted by MR2 is rupees 8. In this case, reallocation of units from cheaper markets to dearer markets is possible and monopolist could increase its total revenue by increasing the number of units sold in market 1 and reducing the number of units sold in market 2. By selling one more units in market 1, the total revenue increases by rupees 10 and by selling one unit less in market 2, the total revenue reduces by rupees 8. So, by reallocating, the monopolist is getting a net increase in total revenue of rupees 2. So, first, the total output produced by the monopolist should be divided between the sub-markets so that the marginal revenue in each sub-market is equal, that is, MR1 is equals to MR2. Second, for a price discriminating monopolist to be in equilibrium, total output must be such that marginal revenue in each sub-market is equal to the marginal cost of production, that is, MR1 is equals to MR2 is equals to MC. For a price discriminatory monopolist to be in equilibrium, the total output is such that MC is equal to aggregate MR curve. The equilibrium point shows that submission MR is equal to MC, that is, the addition to total revenue arising from additional units of output when is allocated to the sub-markets optimally is equal to MC, that is, addition to the total cost arising from the additional unit of output. In figure, panel A shows sub-market 1 where AR1 and MR1 are the corresponding average revenue and marginal revenue curves. Panel 2 shows sub-market 2 where AR2 and MR2 are the corresponding average revenue and marginal revenue curves. Panel C shows the aggregate marginal revenue curve, which is derived by horizontal submission of marginal revenue curves of submarket 1 and 2. MC is the marginal cost of production. For a price discriminatory monopolist to be in equilibrium, the total output is such that MC is equal to aggregate MR curve. The equilibrium point shows that submission MR is equal to MC, that is, the addition to the total revenue arising from additional unit of output when is allocated to the sub-markets optimally is equal to MC, that is, addition to the total cost arising from the additional unit of output. The equilibrium output is OQ2 as panel C. Now draw a line from point C towards MR1 and MR2. The point where this line crosses the marginal revenue curve determines the output sold in the two sub-markets. So, OQ1 units of output are sold in market 1 at OP1 price and OQ2 units of output are sold in market 2 at OP2 price and OQ1 plus OQ2 is equals to OQ. The profit is maximized in each market by equating MC to the corresponding MR. So, in market 1, MR1 is equals to MC and in market 2, MR2 is equals to MC. The total profit is maximized when MC is equal to individual marginal revenues. MR1 is equals to MR2 is equals to MC. The monopolist can profitably practice price discrimination if the market can be divided into sub-markets and each sub-market has different price elasticity. Let us now discuss about the price discrimination and elasticity of demand. We have seen in figure 2 that demand is more elastic in market 2 than in market 1 at all the levels of output, and more elastic the sub-market demand, the lower is the equilibrium price in the sub-market. This can be shown with the help of the relationship between the price and the elasticity of demand. We have seen that MR is equals to P bracket 1 minus 1 by E bracket close, where MR is marginal revenue, P is the price, and E is elasticity of demand. In case of price discrimination in sub-market 1, MR1 is equals to P1 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E1 bracket close, where MR1 is the marginal revenue in sub-market 1, P1 is the price in sub-market 1, E1 is the price elasticity of demand in sub-market 1. Similarly, in sub-market 2, MR2 is equals to P2 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E2 bracket close, where MR2 is the marginal revenue in sub-market 2, P2 is the price in sub-market 2, E2 is the price elasticity of demand in sub-market 2. And marginal revenue must be equal in both markets. MR1 is equals to MR2, so we have P1 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E1 bracket close is equals to P2 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E2 bracket close, or P1 upon P2 is equals to 1 minus 1 upon E2 by 1 minus 1 upon E1. First, if E1 is equals to E2, that is, the elasticities are same in both the sub-markets, then price discrimination is not possible. If E1 is equals to E2, then equation 1 becomes P1 upon P2 is equals to 1, or P1 is equals to P2. In this case, it is not possible for a monopolist to discriminate. Second, if price elasticity differ, that is, E1 is not equal to E2, then price will be lower in the market whose demand is more elastic. P1 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E1 bracket close is equals to P2 bracket 1 minus 1 upon E2 bracket close. If E1 is greater than E2, then 1 minus 1 upon E1 is greater than 1 minus 1 upon E2. Thus, the condition of equality of the marginal revenues to be fulfilled, P1 is less than P2, or if E1 is less than E2, then 1 minus 1 upon E1 is less than 1 minus 1 upon E2, and for the condition of equality of the marginal revenues to be fulfilled at P1 is greater than P2. The market with high elasticity of demand will have the lower price, and the market with low elasticity of demand will have higher price. Now, let us move ahead and discuss the dumping and price discrimination. Dumping is the special case of price discrimination where a firm is a monopolist in domestic country but sells a commodity at a lower price in the foreign country. Dumping is possible because first, firm is protected from foreign competition by tariff and other import restrictions. Second, there are no export restrictions, so firms can also sell the good in the foreign market. Third, there exists difference in the price elasticity of demand among the markets. Here we are studying a special case where a firm is a monopolist in domestic market and faces an international competition in the foreign market. It is graphically shown in figure 3. Panel A shows the firm domestic monopoly which faces a downward sloping average revenue curve AR1 and marginal revenue curve MR2. Panel B shows the case of a firm in the foreign market where it faces a perfect competition and perfectly elastic horizontal demand curve. MR2 and AR2 are the marginal revenue and average revenue curves faced by a firm in the foreign market. Panel C shows the aggregate marginal revenue, which is the horizontal summation of MR1 and MR2. MC is the marginal cost of production. The equilibrium output will occur where the aggregate marginal revenue is equal to MC at point E and equilibrium output is OQ. The total output OQ is to be distributed in foreign and domestic market in such a way that marginal revenue in each market is equal to each other and to the marginal cost, that is MR1 is equals to MR2 is equals to MC. In figure, for any output OM or less than OM, all the output will be sold in the domestic market and firm has no leftover output to be sold in the foreign market. And for any output more than OM, the firm has output left over after completing the domestic demand OM. It will sell it in the foreign market at a perfectly competitive price PC. The equilibrium is determined at point E where aggregate MR is equal to MC and equilibrium output is OQ. The equilibrium output OQ is more than output OM, that is, seller is selling some output in the foreign market as well. Out of OQ units of output, OM is sold in the domestic market at a price PM and MQ is sold in the foreign market at price PC, that is, OQ is equals to OM plus MQ, and price in the foreign market is less than the price in the domestic market. This is said to be the dumping in the foreign market.
Let us now summarize what we have studied in this module. We have seen under perfect competition that perfectly competitive market equilibrium is efficient in resource allocation because it maximizes the sum of producer surplus and consumer surplus. But the situation is entirely different under monopoly which maximizes its profit by producing an output where price is more than marginal cost. This results in higher prices and lower quantities and makes the firm better off and consumers worse off. Monopoly is often criticized because it results in economic inefficiency in resource allocation. Economic efficiency is achieved when resources are allocated among production of goods such that it maximizes the social welfare. Under monopoly, resources are misallocated and it results in the loss of social welfare, which is also known as dead weight loss of the society as a whole. When a product is sold under the condition of monopoly, the prices that consumers are paying are more than the marginal cost. Due to this higher price, the monopolist gains at the expense of consumers and thus the economic inefficiencies arises.